Good afternoon, basketball fans, and welcome to another edition of Sports Talk with Rags here in Season 3, Episode 59. And today, here we are joined by the head coach of Stanford men's basketball, Jerod Haase. Coach Haase, how are you doing today?
Wonderful. Thanks for having me.
Sure, no problem. Well, hey, let's start at the beginning here. Growing up there at and playing basketball there at South Tahoe High School. When did you realize that you could possibly play at the next level?
Well, I always had the dream when I was young, but I didn't know. I don't know if it became real probably till maybe my junior year or even after that. But obviously, loved the game, and it was fun because it was always about really the love of the game and the love of competing, as opposed to trying to chase one exact dream or something like that. And I had a wonderful high school coach in Tom Orlich and a great community, but. Times are getting a little different now. But back in the day, it was awfully nice to be able to just have the dream and chase a dream.
Yes, and hey, you started your collegiate career there as a student athlete at Cal, but then transferring over from Pac 10 there to Big 12 or Big 8 there with going from Cal to Kansas.
Yeah, it was a wonderful opportunity, as you said, and I was recruited a little bit by Stanford and Cal, and was lucky enough to be able to play at Cal that one year, and I did have a good experience, but was super lucky to have a good year and then have an opportunity. There's a lot of change and turmoil that year with coaching change and some other things, and landed on my feet at Kansas, and to say the least, that was a blessing.
Yes, and before we start talking about your Kansas time, I mean, there in the mid 90s, I had just graduated from high school here in Virginia, but didn't go to college. So I moved out to Marin County there with my parents and one of my dad's junior officers there. We were talking about college basketball. And this guy was telling me why he liked Kansas, and come to find out, RX Signey there was friends with one of your brothers, and definitely a small world.
Small world for sure. And no, RX is the best. And I remember, all those days growing up, and so many great people in Tahoe, and he was certainly one of them.
Yes, and definitely going from Cal, going to Kansas, one Power Five school to another Power Five school, but being the privilege there to play for Roy Williams and the tradition there of Rock Chalk Jayhawk.
Yeah, it was, you know, Kansas is known nationwide, obviously, for the basketball program and all the success that the program has had. And I feel thankful to be a small part of it. And yeah, I got a great degree and developed a lot of friendships, and certainly enjoyed my time in the Midwest.
Yes, and then one year the starting five is you, Jacques Vaughn, Scott Pollard, Paul Pierce, Rafe LaFrance. I mean, it just go on there with the roster there for Kansas throughout your time, and definitely definitely successful career as I mean, there in the late '90s conference alignment as the Big Eight went from the Big Eight to the Big 12.
Yeah, it was kind of a fun time. I was actually talking to somebody. I'm kind of a neat feather in my cap that I was part of a team that won the last Big Eight title and was
Yeah.
also part of the team. I have a net from the Big 12 championship, the first ever Big 12 championship. So kind of a history in the making there. And with all the conference realignment, someday my kids or grandkids are going to laugh and talk about, what was the Big Eight or Pac-10 or Big 12, who knows where it's all going kind of thing. No, I had a wonderful time, and as you kind of mentioned already, some of the teammates I played with and Coach Williams, it was really truly an amazing few years there.
Yes, and you talk about Kansas being known nationwide. I mean, when we lived there in Northern California, my sister was still in high school, and she had a math teacher that was a Kansas alum, and he was the one that taught my sister that chant there around being in class there around March Madness. But then after your time at Kansas, I mean, I even see that you wrote a book, and Kansas there was ranked number one for 15 straight weeks there in 96-97 season.
Yeah, it was interesting. My fifth year, because I redshirted because I transferred, and had my degree, and really wanted to, um, you know, give basketball really a great focus. And I finished my undergrad degree, but had a little bit of time. And my co-author had this idea of doing this book, and I didn't know if it would work or not work, but I also knew that um, it'd be a wonderful opportunity to have kind of documentation about that senior year, because I knew it was going to be a great group of guys and thought we'd have a great year. We did, but we didn't finish how we wanted. But to this day, to be able to have that book for my kids and let them read it, and that kind of thing means a lot to me.
Yeah, and then after your playing days are done, then you played under Coach Roy Williams, but then getting a start to build your coaching resume there with being part of his staff there at Kansas.
No question. I was smart enough to know to try and latch on to Coach Williams and
Right.
not leave him, and that's what I did, both as a player and then as a staff member as well, and was able to coach under him as a kind of an operations guy for 4 years at Kansas, and then I was with him for 9 years at North Carolina as well, and was fortunate enough to be able to come to head coach at UAB. But I knew how impressive Coach Williams was as a coach and the kind of person he was. And I knew if I had a chance to stay with him as long as possible, that was the right thing to do. And fortunately, I was very lucky. And but knowing staying with him was going to be a real benefit for me and my family.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and then as you just mentioned, where you got the opportunity to go with him when he was named head coach at UNC, but I mean, a student athlete at Kansas, an assistant coach at Kansas, an assistant coach at UNC, and when you talk about winning men's basketball program, Kansas and UNC are right up there in the top five. I mean, Dean Smith, Kansas alum, coaches at UNC. Roy Williams, UNC alum, coaches at both schools. So definitely a lot of tradition there with around men's basketball between those two institutions.
Well, it's kind of amazing too, and the number of coaches and players that have affiliations with both universities. You mentioned me, but like Dean Smith and Roy Williams, obviously are the obvious ones. But so many coaches at Kansas came from North Carolina and vice versa. And in a weird way, almost sister schools. Both programs have had so much success on the court, and I'm very, very fortunate to be a part of or both of them in a very small way.
Right. Yes. And in 07-08, UNC had success there in the regular season of the ACC and in the tournament, but yeah, and made it to the Final Four, but lost there to Kansas. But then it all uh, it all came together there in the Motor City the following year.
Yeah, had unbelievable amount of talent, for sure. And then Coach Williams did such a great job of, meshing that talent together, getting everybody really focused on the team goals, and with the idea that shoot, when the team wins, all the individuals do well also. But to be able to cut down the nets and to see those players and Coach Williams cut down the net was really a special moment.
Right. And then getting named head coach down there at UAB, and I know that I personally met you when UAB came to Old Dominion and playing a game here with Old Dominion at the time. Being Conference USA, but talk about the time of there being at Alabama Birmingham.
The Yeah, the transition from an assistant to head coach is a challenging one. It was probably a little bit easier, the fact that I was able to be our JV coach at North Carolina, and it was, having a little bit of head coaching experience, even though it wasn't on TV or nationally publicized, that kind of thing. But having communicated with the guys and calling timeouts and organizing practice was really helpful for the time I went to UAB. And then when I was UAB, the community really welcomed me. Took a couple years to really get the program where we wanted it, and then we did have some success, and but really enjoyed my time in Birmingham.
Yeah, and student athlete made it to March Madness as an assistant coach. Made the March Madness, won the tournament. But what was that feeling there in 2015 when you led UAB there to the tournament here as a head coach and got their tournament win, made it to the round of 32.
The the fun part about that run was, the first couple years it was challenging to get the team how we wanted them, and that third year we really struggled early on, and we had a team built with freshmen and sophomores, and we really doubled down on our core values and the process of how we were going to do things, and we were fortunate to win a couple early games in the conference season, and then make a run to get in a top 4 seed in our conference tournament. And the fact that we won the tournament got us in the big dance. And then obviously we were playing really well at that point and beat Iowa State. And it was a group of guys that really meshed together, came together. But it was, for me, it was really a story about when times were tough and we were down, we didn't splinter. We didn't try and take shortcuts. We doubled down on what we really believed in. And that was a group that did that.
Right. Yes. Yeah. And 2016, another successful season there in conference play. Didn't make it to the big dance, but did make it to the NIT. But then your time there at UAB and running that program, and then the end of March 2016, you were named head coach there at Stanford.
Yeah, one of the things I've always believed in is that, college athletics, college basketball is more than just basketball, and it's more than winning games. And obviously, that's a big part of it. But the education does mean something. Life after basketball means something. And I really felt that, my dream school in high school was probably to go to Stanford,
Right.
and not probably, it was. And when this job came open, talked to my wife about, the idea that I want to be in, there weren't Zoom calls then, but whether it's a Zoom call or going in somebody's living room and talking about not just developing as a player and winning championships, but also talking about having a world-class education and the things they can do after basketball. So for me, I thought this was a really a good fit at the time, and I've enjoyed immensely the scholar athletes that we've had here.
Right. Yes. And during your time, I mean, you mentioned something about Zoom calls, and I think that's one thing that took off there during the pandemic. But just talk about here your time here there since let's see, the first season there was 16-17, but then in 2020 everybody's getting ready for conference tournament, or who's on the bubble, then everything shuts down because of what's going on across the country there with the pandemic.
Yeah, since I've been at Stanford, I'm really proud of a lot of the things that we've done as a program, but the amount of change in the last 5-6 years is unbelievable. And obviously, COVID, that everybody had to deal with. I think we had a little bit even tougher, bigger hill to climb with. We basically spent the entire year away from campus, and not one of my players or staff members had a meal with another human for the entire year, and everybody had separate rooms, and it was really challenging. And then as time went on and we got out of COVID, and the number of transfers, the COVID year for extra years, NIL, really big topics. Now conference realignment, college basketball, college athletics has changed so much. And it's really been, honestly fun in a lot of ways trying to navigate that at Stanford, but it's something that it really is challenging, how quickly things are changing and trying to evolve and change with it.
Yeah, so let's see. So here we are, August 2023. The basketball season, practice, I guess, officially starts probably somewhere in October with somewhere beginning to middle November. Start non-conference games. But is this the time that kind of take your take your last breath here before everything hits the ground running here with unofficial workouts, and then the official start of practice there, like sometime mid to end of October?
For us, it's a little bit different because we're on the quarter system. So we're still in summer school right now. We're practicing right now, and then we're going to go on a foreign tour to France and Greece here at the end of the month. And so September will be a little bit quieter for us. We'll have some recruiting, but our guys will go home. And then end of September, everybody will be back, and we'll get at it. So yeah, before the end of September, we'll take a deep breath and get ourselves ready and try and make a nice run this year.
Yeah, and I think I appreciate your time, but here we talked about there your playing days in the mid '90s, and now just about every Power 5 conference has their own network, and different TV deals with ESPN and Fox. I mean, once the regular season starts in November, it's pretty much a game on TV just about every night.
Yeah, the amount of telecasts and the different options and the availability of games is really great. It's great for our guys for their exposure and great for the families to be able to see them, whether they're local or across the country or international as well. So really, it's been a fun time and an aggressive time in terms of change in college athletics.
Yes. Well, hey, Coach Haas, I appreciate your time, and definitely remember seeing you play there as a player, and then keeping tabs. I mean, with being in Virginia, definitely remember there when Coach Williams led UNC, and then your coaching career there with UAB and on to Stanford. So thanks for your time, and have a great trip overseas, and good luck to Stanford here in the 23-24 season.
I sure appreciate it. Thanks for your time and wish you all the best.
All right. Well, hey, fans. So that was Coach Jerod Haase here talking about his story with being a student athlete at Kansas, and then getting into coaching, and here being the head coach there at Stanford men's basketball. So have a good rest of the summer, and thanks again.
Appreciate you. Take care.
All right. See you.
Bye.